There's a moment in this stretch of the series where Tomoko's name becomes shorthand among her classmates for failing at something people who don't even know her using, and she's sitting right there when she hears it. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are watching this from. This is WataMote Kutnins. We continue catching up on what's going on with WataMote until hopefully we've mostly caught up. So sit back, relax, maybe grab a warm cup of tea, and let's see what happened after the anime. Last time, we picked up right where the anime left off. Tomoko forgot to mail her brother's school application, spent her 16th birthday realizing she's still very much a kid, had a surprisingly human encounter with a graduating student who treated her like a normal person, survived a park bench incident that ended with a policeman, and tried and failed to lure classmates to her desk with manga and snacks. Small wins, small disasters, same old Tomoko. Today we keep going from chapter 41, and by the end of this one, someone from her past walks back into her life. Someone she's completely forgotten, but who clearly hasn't forgotten about her. Chapter 41 opens small. Hina greets her at the shoe lockers. Tomoko stammers out a good morning, and immediately, privately congratulates herself for hitting her social quota for the day with that fun exchange. It's kind of funny, but also kind of bleak. One greeting is enough to feel like an accomplishment. The chapter then rewinds a few days. Tomoko's found a hiding spot under a stairwell to avoid people during breaks, and on one of her little explorations around the school, she wanders into her old classroom and spots her brother Tomoki sleeping on his desk. She immediately assumes he must be faking it. A loner just like her, putting on a brave face, and feels a wave of sympathy for him. In reality though, he just didn't get much sleep because of early sports practice. She's really projecting here. Motivated by this, Tomoko creates an actual point system for herself. Gain points for socializing, lose a point just for showing up to school at all, and if she drops to -5, the punishment is letting her brother slap her. A week later, she's sitting at -3. Her only positive points the entire week came from talking with Hina, but Hina's rarely even at her desk, and the thought of approaching any of the boys in their little groups is too intimidating. Desperate, Tomoko goes to borrow her brother's dictionary just to scrape together one more point. He's sleeping again. She wakes him and he tells her flatly not to talk to him at school. She follows him anyway, stammering out her request. Back at her desk, she fumes about his attitude and swears she'll never speak to him again. Of course, the next day she has to return the dictionary and ends up loudly arguing with him again, storming off while declaring she'll be back tomorrow to borrow it again anyway. Realizing the whole point system is pointless for herself, she has a strange pivot. Maybe it actually helped Tomoki instead. She decides to rewrite the system for him. While looking for him, she finds him talking with 2 other boys and watches a girl named Akari nervously offer homemade cookies to all 3, with her friend Sayaka encouraging her so it doesn't look like she's singling Tomoki out. One of the boys jokes that the cookies look like charcoal. Tomoko watches this whole tiny, ordinary social moment around a corner, clearly somewhat stunned by how easy it looks for everyone else. This chapter ends with Tomoko almost magically finalizing her revised point system for her brother now, vowing that if he ever hit -100 points, she'll kill him. Now this is one of those chapters where the manga uses comedy to mask something genuinely sad. Tomoko literally cannot process a normal social interaction without either misreading it through her own loneliness or watching it from a distance like an outsider. That cookie scene is played for laughs, but there's something real underneath it. In that she's watching normal human warmth happen right in front of her and has no idea how to step into it. Now chapter 42 is structured as a handful of smaller vignettes, which actually make it a nice one to pull a few highlights from rather than recount in full. In the first bit, Tomoko spots a girl named Megumi cheerfully greeting students on the way to school, and immediately avoids her since the context here is Tomoko once accidentally saw Megumi's underwear, which makes the whole thing unbearably awkward for her. Her homeroom teacher Ogino corners her anyway, forcing her to practice saying a normal morning reading out loud, clearly and confidently, and then, in front of Megumi, asks Tomoko point blank whether she's made any friends yet. Megumi jumps in, kindly insisting they're already friends, which Tomoko privately finds more patronizing than comforting. Ogino isn't satisfied either, since Megumi's a third year and doesn't really count, and casually reveals to Megumi that Tomoko is always alone in class. Tomoko quietly leaves, while the two of them keep arguing about her, over her head, like she's not even there. There's a small, genuinely touching beat after that. Tomoko reflects on how much she's actually grown since last year. She talks to Hina sometimes now. Even Kuroki level, her name as a punchline for failure, has died down. When she works up the nerve to awkwardly hand off some home ec ingredients to a classmate, and then escape to the nurse's office claiming she feels sick, she lies there smiling, genuinely proud that she found the courage to do even that much. Something last year's version of her could never have. Now I want to flag that beat because it's easy to just play this whole stretch for laughs, and honestly a lot of it is funny, but that moment of quiet pride over something that small is genuinely earned. She's growing, not dramatically, not visibly to anyone else, but she is. And then of course the chapter takes a turn in classic Tomoko fashion. A boy resting in the next cot has his knee bent at an angle that creates a shadow she badly misreads. And bored after he leaves, she starts snooping around the nurse's empty office, finds a laptop containing every first year's health exam records, and her face goes from sad to shocked to delighted as she reads through it. At lunch, the classmate she gave her ingredients to, a girl with an unnamed boyfriend the fandom just calls Mike, offers her some of the food that she made in home ec. Tomoko lies and says it's good. The girl cheerfully explains it's actually leftovers she made for her boyfriend, who insisted on trying her cooking even though she admits she doesn't really know how. With a fixed, polite smile, Tomoko finishes the food, then excuses herself to the bathroom, where she immediately throws up, mentally cursing the boyfriend the whole time. She staggers back just long enough to grab her bag and head home, pausing in the stall to numbly fidget with the toilet paper roll. Later, recovered, she leans on the school balcony at sunset, listening to the after-school sounds drifting up, and overhears someone else throwing up nearby, assuming, with a flicker of grim satisfaction, that it's the boyfriend getting exactly what he deserved. Chapter 43 starts with Tomoko overhearing two girls gossiping in the bathroom about friends having sex, and then admitting to each other that neither of them has ever actually seen a guy naked. It's a throwaway moment for them. For Tomoko, it becomes a mission. At home, sitting with her stuffed pillows, she decides, out of nowhere, that she's going to rise above those two girls by seeing male genitalia for herself. So she marches into her brother Tomoki's room and demands he show her his. Well, you guess. He tells her bluntly to handle that herself and get out. Tomoko, completely undeterred and clearly missing the point entirely, suggests maybe they should take a bath together like they did as kids. Tomoki, understandably horrified, calls her creepy, which she takes as an insult, arguing that any brother who's weirded out by seeing his sister naked is basically a pervert himself. He just asks her to step back so he can slam the door in her face. The next day in class, she genuinely cannot focus. She's too distracted by her own curiosity, to the point where she pulls out her phone to search for explicit images, fully aware this won't actually accomplish what she's trying to prove to herself. Hina, sitting nearby, asks what she's looking at. Tomoko panics, fumbles the phone, and it skids all the way to the front of the classroom, right into her teacher Ogino's hands. Ogino sees exactly what's on the screen and absolutely loses it, furiously demanding whoever owns this phone to step outside immediately. So the chapter ends on this brutal, almost matter-of-fact narration line. Among the small fraction of girls who've now actually seen male genitalia, Kuroki has officially joined their ranks, just not at all in the way she wanted. Chapter 44 is the midterms, and it's a quieter, more melancholic chapter. Tomoko remembers last year, fully expecting to ace her exams and bask in everyone's admiration. Instead, she landed at totally average grades, lost her motivation, and watched her scores slide even further from there. Recently, she overheard her parents quietly discussing sending her to a college prep school, which is enough to actually scare her into vowing to study harder this time. She heads to a coffee shop, feeling almost proud of herself, just for being the kind of person who studies in a cafe. She puts on music, imagines other customers thinking it's a cool thing that a high schooler is studying there independently, and 30 minutes pass without her opening a single book. Then a man sits down next to her with his laptop and starts watching anime. Noticing Tomoko glancing over, He turns the volume up just enough for her to hear too. She ends up watching 2 full episodes with him, completely by accident, and goes home to finish the rest of the series on her own that night. The next day, same thing. He's there again. She watches more episodes with him instead of studying, and heads home without having opened the book. This goes on for about a week until he finally finishes the whole series sitting next to her, closes his laptop, and tells her, almost as an afterthought, that it was fun. He notes she's always there, and she bumbles something about having tests to study for. He mentions he probably needs to find somewhere else to relax anyway, since his coworkers think he's been slacking off too much at this cafe. Wishes her good luck on her tests, and that's it. The next day, he doesn't show up, and finally, with nothing left to distract her, Tomoko actually studies. Back at school, she gets her midterm results. Solidly average, somewhere between 68 and 76%, which is enough, she figures, to keep her out of prep school. Walking home past the cafe, she thinks about how the man never came back and feels a strange, genuine gratitude toward him anyway, since he's the reason she finally buckled down and studied. Deciding she's earned a break, she starts rewatching that same anime series at home that night, telling herself she should at least live up to people's modest expectations of her. But alone, without him there, she finds it kinda boring. The anime itself didn't change, but watching it with someone, even a total stranger she barely spoke to, made it feel completely different. That's such a specific, quietly devastating detail about what loneliness actually feels like. Now chapter 45 is lighter, almost a palate cleanser. Tomoko gets bored and decides to mess with her brother for entertainment. She sits in his room while he's trying to read and casually claims she's a real boyfriend, not a video game one, an actual person. When that doesn't get a reaction out of him, she escalates, telling him about the secret passageway between the school's 2 buildings and dramatically forbidding him from ever going there, claiming it's where she eats lunch with said boyfriend. A transparent attempt to make him jealous that, predictably, lands flat. The next day, she's actually sitting there eating lunch in this passageway alone, and 2 boys passing through just remark on how strange it is that someone's eating there at all. A few days later, Tomoki actually shows up at the passageway, and Tomoko panics, fumbling to pull out a piece of paper that just says, "Boat!" A prank reveal that gets absolutely no reaction from him whatsoever. She just goes back to eating, asking him to wait while she finishes, and he dryly admits he's mildly surprised that this hallway even exists. When she offered to show him other hidden spots around the school, he turns her down flat. Now, chapter 46 is where things get interesting. And I want to take a moment before we get into the chapter itself because the character we're about to meet is someone you've technically already seen. But more than that, she's evidence of something the anime never quite shows you directly. The anime presents Tomoko as someone who's always been this isolated. A girl who never fit in, never connected, never had any friends. But that's the version of her we're given, and it's not wrong exactly, but it's not complete. Because Kotomi Komiyama's existence quietly flips that on its head. Tomoko wasn't always this alone. She had a social circle in middle school, a messy, complicated, contentious one, but a real one. You, Kotomi, Tomoko. A weird 3-way dynamic existed between them. The version of Tomoko the anime gives you isn't someone who was born alone. She's someone who had real connections, handled them so carelessly that she doesn't even remember they existed, and arrived at high school already having burned bridges she didn't even know were ash. That reframe matters because it changes what we've actually been watching. It's not a story about a girl who never connected with anyone. It's a story about a girl who connected badly, forgot completely, and is now trying to figure out how to do it right, without even knowing that's what she's doing. Anyway, Kotomi. If you watch the OVA, there's a girl in it who's absolutely furious at Tomoko over Yu's attention. Short black hair, red-rimmed glasses, clearly at the end of her rope. She has maybe a few seconds of screen time, no name given, and if you blinked, you'd have missed her entirely. That's Kotomi Komiyama, and she's been carrying a very specific grudge ever since middle school. One that Tomoko has absolutely no memory of. Now chapter 46 opens with Tomoko sitting at the edge of the school pool, legs dangling in, holding a hose, thinking to herself that nothing's really changed since middle school. It's a quiet moment, and it introduces someone who's going to complicate the next stretch of her life quite significantly. At the library, Tomoko goes to check out a book, stammering through the interaction with the student librarian, and the librarian is visibly stunned to realize Tomoko goes to the school. She brings up their middle school days, clearly expecting Tomoko to remember her. Tomoko has absolutely no idea who she is. Now here's what you need to know about Kotomi before we go further. She's a middle school classmate of both Tomoko and Yu, but crucially, Yu befriended her on a day Tomoko had to stay homesick, meaning their friendship exists in a space Tomoko was never part of. She's shy, but doesn't have the same crippling social difficulty that Tomoko does. She has real friends, she can hold a conversation, she functions. She's also a massive baseball fan, specifically of the Chiba Lotte Marines, and if you give her half a chance, she will talk your ear off about it. And she has a crush on Tomoko's brother Tomoki for years. That last part is the source of everything. Because back in middle school, Kotomi tried to confess that she wanted to give Tomoki Valentine's Day chocolate. And Tomoko, being Tomoko, completely misread the situation, interpreted it in the most inappropriate way possible, and humiliated her in front of everyone. Kotomi has never forgotten about it. Tomoko, as we're about to see, forgot about it completely. So here they are, Kotomi visibly stunned, Tomoko genuinely clueless. Tomoko can picture Yu clearly. She can picture another girl named Kawamoto who wore glasses. But for Kotomi, all she can summon is just a vague impression of glasses. She actually guesses out loud that Kotomi must be Kawamoto after losing weight, even recalling an incident where she once sneezed stew into Kawamoto's face, and genuinely concludes that explains why Kawamoto seems so annoyed with her. She greets Kotomi by the wrong name. Kotomi corrects her, quietly realizing in that moment that Tomoko has completely erased her from memory. Forcing a smile, she hands over the book and notices Tomoko's nickname for her from this point forward. She never quite manages to remember the full surname, so she just calls her Komi something. It's not even malicious, she genuinely can't be bothered to retain it. Walking away, Tomoko starts piecing together that this girl was actually a friend of Yu's, the only reason they'd ever interacted, and starts wondering, almost idly, whether she'd done something to make her hate her. Meanwhile, back in the library, Kotomi is quietly furious. She considers Tomoko, in her own words, human trash, and now she's found out that the person she's been angry at for years doesn't even remember her existence. That night, Tomoko flips through her middle school yearbook, finds Kotomi's photo, decides she must have been a loner too, and cheerfully concludes they should get along just fine. The chapter ends with a pointed bit of narration, basically daring you to ask, what actually happened between these two? That question, what actually happened between Tomoko and Kotomi, turns out to have a real answer, and it's not a happy one. We find out exactly what next time. If you've liked this content so far, please leave a like and maybe a subscribe, as that helps the channel a little bit. Come back next time as we continue trying to catch up with WataMote. Take care, go out there and make the world a slightly better place. Otherwise, a pleasant day to you, and see you next time. Same time, same channel.